Linda. Please welcome Linda Garcia-Perez.
For those who have watches, I'm going to ask you to do a favor to watch your time. I have to be done here at 10:50. So if you see your watch at 10:50, just go like this. I love the way we communicate. We use words, we use signs. And for those that are hearing impaired, I'm really interested in American Sign Language. And this is how we say hi. Hello. Buenos dias. We have all different ways of saying it, especially when you see a friend. When you see a friend, oh, it's so good to see you. Those arms just come out like automatically, don't they? And that's the best feeling. It took me a long time as a grown woman to have another woman come and just hug me. In fact, it was Sister Mary Angelo at the College of St. Mary. I had never had anybody do it that hard like she did. She just came up, oh, so glad to see you. I freaked out. I left my art class. She was my art instructor. I left art class, and I disappeared for over a day. In my room, I had my own resident room there, and she came looking for what happened. I said, I didn't know how to do that. My mom never really hugged us. You know, it's one of those things, and yet Mexicans always are hugging, but my mom just kind of held back a little bit. So when I had it happen to me, so now I'm a hugger too, so don't be offended. I already hugged this guy.
That's right.
Don't read more into it, okay? My husband would not like it. Besides, I have my son here.
Yes.
One of the things I like to do, I found that American Sign Language, there's also baby talk language in American Sign Language. And I love the word picnic because it's spelled the same way in Spanish, except the way it's pronounced. All the I's in Spanish have a long E sound. So my name is Linda, but in Spanish would be Linda. You gotta put that I has an E sound. Picnic has two I's in it, so in Spanish you would hear picnic. But this is a basket, and the way they say it in different languages, I love to hear the different languages, Polish, German, whatever, Irish, they have a different way of saying it. But the ASL say it this way. This is a basket. Because you put the bottom and you put the handle. Doesn't that make sense? But a baby way to say picnic, you go like this. That means picnic because this means you're hungry for food. So this food and you just go like this because of the handle. There are numerous ways you can learn American Sign Language on YouTube. There is a one that just does library phrases. You can learn how to say book, and you're going to listen to my stories, and I hope you like them. Anyhow, one of the things in American Sign Language, they have entire stories told in sign language on YouTube. Children's stories, so children can watch it. And I saw a couple of videos on Facebook. A mother is teaching her child to sign language, and the child's only 2 years old. And another one was 18 months old. And so the child cannot hear, so she's trying to introduce sign language. She gets hearing aid inserted in her head later, but one of the things was she taught her child was when she's hungry, or thank you. And the other thing was milk. You're going to love the way they say milk in sign language. It's like this, you hold it, and you pull it. You know what that is, right? Those who farm people know what this is, because I did it too. It's milking a cow. So the little baby would say milk. But I thought it was really remarkable, she teaching her child. But not only that, she has other ones who can hear, but she's teaching them too. So, and there's storytellers I watched on television. His entire story was in sign language, and he had somebody else speaking it at the same time. And when we have presentation, I belong to Nebraska StoryArts, when we have our the Nebraska Storytelling Festival at Mahoney State Park in September, we always hire an American Sign Language person. Sometimes you forget the storytellers there because we're so busy watching the sign language, and they have fun with them. They would introduce crazy words or really fast, see if that person could keep up. And there's a different sign language for people who speak Spanish too. It's a little different. They introduce different things. So I'm finding out the different languages. And the reason I'm interested in languages is because I didn't start speaking English until I was going to kindergarten. We lived with my grandparents who spoke only Spanish. My dad died when we were really, really small. I don't even remember him. I think it was only one when he passed away. So we lived with my grandmother, and my grandmother was sneaky. She said she didn't speak Spanish, but I'll guarantee she knew every word I was saying. And I noticed that when my mother didn't want us to hear something, she would speak Spanish to my mom. So I had to learn how to speak English. So my stories are a little bit of English, Spanish, American Sign Language, a little bit. I am a fascinated. You guys speak a different language, or you know somebody who speaks a different language? You come from a family that speaks a different language or a different culture? No?
My parents did.
What language do they speak?
And they also spoke English, German and Czech.
Oh, Czech, all right. I love their food. Kolaches, man. Kolaches are my favorite. And that's how we get to talk about different languages, different things that we do and everything. Don't you remember when you're at I don't know if it's happened to you, at a Thanksgiving table and you got family there? And one person will tell this story of what happened, and the other one will say, no, that's not the way he did it, it's this way. You know, we don't call you a liar, you just have a different version, right? So, and I love to bring them. So one of my family stories, I'm going to tell you my favorite toy was in this bag. Some of you know what this is, right? We call it a trapo, kind of a right. Some people call it tea towels, some kind of dish towels, whatever you wanted to use it. Well, my grandmother used it to wrap tortillas. That was my job. She got a big can, a big aluminum bowl. She put her tortillas. My job was when she made the dough, was to get the dough, squeeze it, and pull out a little piece and roll it into balls for her. So I lined up all my balls here, and she picked them and flattened them and put them on the. So that was my job. But then she'd wrap the tortillas in here, and after she did it, I would take and I would smell it. I love the tortilla smell. But let me tell you, I grew up living in my grandmother's house in Omaha, Nebraska, and our neighbors were Jeannie and Joni. They were twins. One was a redhead with freckles, the other one was a blonde head with freckles. I wanted freckles my whole life. And you know what? I got them. They're just called dark spots now. So what you wish for in your life is going to happen sooner or later, and I'm proud of my spots. They just gotten a little bit bigger as freckles, and that's all. But this was my favorite toy because of Jeannie and Joni. We played restaurant. I took these, and we pretended we were the cooks, so that's when I was skinny. I would wrap this was my apron, and then somebody had to be the waitress or something, take the orders, so we became the waitress. And we cleaned off the table with that. My grandmother never knew what happened to these, how they got so stained. Because we would make mud pies. How many made mud pies and mud cakes? Oh, you know what I'm talking about. I had the most fun picking out pieces of twigs, acorns, little pebbles, little stones, whatever we could put on our cakes to make them fancy. And sometimes we even tasted it. Yeah. That was a mistake, wasn't it? And we would take the best dishes her mother had. Her mother never knew it. We make sure we cleaned them afterwards. We had a dishwashing section with water and everything. So we did that. But one of the things I noticed, on the detective family, the blonde had long hair. Her sister, older sister, had long hair, and we watched the movie, and we see these blondes with the long hair. Oh my goodness. Well, I wanted blonde hair, so I took this and put it on my head, and I would tie it, and I would be the model, and we put in ribbons and everything. So I was a blondie for a while. I wanted to know what it felt like. The trouble is, I was kind of too dark for a blondie, wasn't I? But that's okay. And then my brother and I are 11 months apart. Tony and I played together. We played nurses and doctor. When I was the nurse or the doctor, he pretended, I laid him on the bed, pretended he had a broken leg, and I would take these 2 or 3 of them and wrap his leg up, and then his arm was broken, so don't you remember doing this? And slinging it, and putting a broken arm? When my brother he was not being good to me, I'd take 2 of these and tie his hands together and tie his legs together. So this was my favorite toy. Mi abuelita. My grandmother was called, her nickname was Cuca. Her real name was Refugia, it means Ruth. I can never say that word, my Refugia. That is the hardest word. We just call her Cuca. And I learned so much from my grandmother. My grandmother, I learned how important reading was, because every morning she had a newspaper in Spanish that came in from California. And when she sat down, she sat like this next to her dining room table, just like I am. Have her cigarettes here, not bought cigarettes. My grandmother believed in making her own. So she had the little pouches of tobacco, and she was so good she could do it with one hand. She could lay that paper down here like that, took the tobacco one like this, and rolled it. Trouble is, her cigarettes were never like this, they were more like this. And she put them on the edge of her lip, and every time she talked, that cigarette would go up and down. And how I knew it, because I played under her table, and I would watch her do this, and then I would watch it snow. She'd forget to take the ashes off, so the ashes would fall in her dress and on the floor. So all her dresses had little holes in them. My grandmother, she was something else. Oh my goodness. But I inherited something that people don't like to talk about. I have an inheritance from her. And I can't blame her or be mad about her because I can't help it. When she had sat there, she had these shoes, but they only could be leather. And there would be an odor that would come when I was under the table. And I'd go, whoa, Pucci, Pucci, what is that smell? And then I realized I inherited those too, Pucci patas. So I cannot wear closed shoes. It has to be like sandals so my feet can breathe. And it can only be good leather. Oh my goodness, I taught the kids how to say Pucci patas. That's stinky feet. And I believe when I had a whole bunch of kids here, they left here saying, Pucci patas the whole time going on. And the teachers would look at them. I said, what's a good way to say it? And now you can say it to your parents and they don't even know it, what it means. I guess because we inherited, one time or another, Pucci patas. Well, the story I like to tell, I never like to tell the name of it on my stories because I want you to figure it out. But it comes from another storyteller. Like I picked out some of his stories too, from his book, Poem and Other Stories. I love that book. I wish I'd brought it so you could sign it. Doggone it. Didn't remember. When you get older, you can't remember everything, can you? You think you could, but no. Well, anyhow, this one goes from Antonio Sacre. And I heard him tell it at the Nebraska Storytelling Festival. And then I met him a couple of times later and I asked permission. In fact, I had it on him if I could tell some of his stories. I like to ask permission personally or write him. Is it okay if I tell you a story? Well, this story you'll find in the library. He turned it into a picture book. But that story is really small compared to what I'm going to tell you. Because I keep adding and adding and adding. Había una familia. Once upon a time there was a family of mice. Había papa y mamá, hermana y hermano. There was mother and father and sister and brother. Now, grandmothers and mothers know this position, and librarians too. Because one of the things mother loved to do was go like this. You know what this means, right? Or like this. You know what these means, right? Or you're worried about something, or, but this one mother had a different way of approaching. She'd go like this. What she wanted them is to look at her eyes and to listen to what she was saying. Because they lived, most time lived near where the cats were. And she would say, cuidado, be careful, cuidado, cuidado. And they would look and they knew they better pay attention, or they'd be there all day with this. So they listened right away. She'd go, cuidado, porque ahí vive una gato allá, because there lives a cat. Y ese gato van a, si no cuida. So they were a little scared, cuidado. They knew that word when mother said this. But before she could even say the word, they knew what this meant. Listen to me, listen to me. And open your eyes to where you're going. Cuidado. So they knew as soon as they saw that. So it's a different way of language. This is almost like American Sign Language, isn't it? Cuidado. So they wanted to go out and play, but mother got a basket. She says, we're gonna have a picnic. So they said, now go get the food so we can put it in. So they put in strawberries, and they put in leche, and they put in queso, cheese. This is queso. This is how you say cheese. I don't know where they get. So I'm always interested in how they get.
Gravy.
Yeah, they come. There's this pressing cheese slices, I guess, or somehow. Because he did press cheese to get the liquid out. So I think this is the way they say cheese, and milk, and raspberries. So they would put that, and they went and found a place with Dad. They found a big tree to sit, and the father said, oh, vamos a comer, we're going to eat, we're going to have queso, and cheese, and cheese, and cheese. And after they got done eating, Papa said, oh, I think I ate too much. I think I need a fiesta. I think I need to rest. And Mother goes, yo también, me too. I think I need a rest. But Mother said, cuidado, because he knew the kids wanted to play. But Mama, vamos allá. We're going to go over there. Cuidado, cuidado. Acuerde. Remember that hay un gato. Oh, Mama, no te preocupes. Don't worry so much. So the children went out, and the father and the mother sat down by the tree trunk, and they went una siesta. They slept and they slept. It was the best sleep they have ever had. Because the children were not there, and they were nice and full with the food that they loved. And she was next to her husband, who she loved. And they were next to each other, so they kind of knew. They held hands and they fell asleep. And meanwhile, the little sister and brother went, and now if you're a little mouse, you know going through grass is this high grass. And they were going through just like, well, now everything the brother did, the sister did. So she's going and pushing the grass aside. And then he bumped into this wooden thing. What is this? And they looked, there was a whole bunch of little wooden things. They could see through it, but they heard something. They heard, what's that sound? What's that sound? And then they looked over through the crack of the fence, and they saw this black thing going, I bet that's the gavel. I bet that's the cat, the little boy said. And the sister goes, oh, I think that's the cat too. Everything brother did, she had to do too. So he thought, and like boys, you know boys like to tease, right? And there's some guys too who like to tease. I know that. My husband, my son loves to tease. He does these switcheroos sometimes. And the little boy stuck his hand and he goes, "Hola gato flaco, hello skinny cat." Raspberry. Well, that cat heard that sound. What's that sound? What's that sound? And the cat gets up and he looks with his ojos, with his eyes, and he sees 2 little mice. And he goes, "Oh, it's about noon. I think I could use a snack before lunch." And he thought, "I'm going to have those for my snack." So he gets up and he starts walking back here, and then he takes a run, and he gets on top of the fence, but he slips and he falls, and the cat and the little mouse, they start laughing, and really teasing him. "Oh, they got the flaco." Oh, this sound, that mouse hated it. And of course the little girl has to put her hand in. "Oh, they got the flaco." That did it. So that cat ran all the way back. This time he took a running start, got on top of the fence, and he looked down at the mouse. "Oh, I got those," the little boy said. "Oh, I got those," this little girl said. He grabbed his sister and they took off running through the same trail they had laid the grass. And they get to father, "Papa, papa, papa." What? ¿Qué pasa? ¿Qué pasa? "Ay, papá, ahí viene un gato y vamos a." "Ahí viene a cat, and he's going to." And the father goes, ¿Qué? What? And they repeat it again. The little girl tells him. And the father goes with his big vest, "Yo no tengo miedo de un gato. I'm not afraid of any cat." He says, "Ese gato viene. If that cat comes, I want to give him a pow, pow, pow." "You what?" So the father stood up, getting ready, getting his arms ready, and getting his fist ready, getting exercise. And he sees the cat. "Ahí viene el gato." And he looks at his ojos, and the father goes, "Ay, ese gato," and he steps back. And then the cat's closer, and he sees those teeth. "Ay, ese gato," and he steps back, and he sees the claws. "Ay, ese gato," and he takes off, and he runs in, and he hides behind the wife. And the wife would step now in front. Now, you know women can think more than one thing at a time, right? They got good memories. We think the staff of the mother can do something, right? Well, that mother was smart. She stood up and she goes, "Yo no tengo miedo. I'm not afraid." And the poor father is just shaking in the back. He's holding on to the dress of his wife, giving her encouragement and pushing her in front. Of course. Isn't that the truth? Anyhow, she stood there, and she's going down like this now. She's going with these arms, but she's doing a sound the cat is not aware of until he gets closer. He goes, "Oh!" And the cat looks, "Where the heck did that sound come from?" And he gets closer. "Well, I'm still hungry, and now there's 4 of them mice, and this one's a little fatter, so I get more out of her." So he gets even closer, thinking he's going to just take her and take them all. But she's going like this and doing all this sound, and she's going like this, and she gives a, "Ah!" And that dog sound scared the holy mackerel out of that cat. He took off. His hair went straight up, just like that. He took off and he ran home. And the father grabs the children, and they're running home, and the wife is following. And in their house, the father sits down, and he goes, "Ay, ese gato!" And the little boy runs in and sits next to his daddy. "Ay, ese gato!" And the little girl comes in. "Ay, ese gato!" And the little girl sits down. But here comes the mother. And she's sitting in front, walking in front of the back and forth. And she goes, "Ya te sabes, now you know. En este mundo, and in this world, tienes que hablar 2 lenguas. In this world, you find out you need to know 2 languages." And you'll find that picture book, it's called Barking Mouse. But you'll find out I've added a lot more to it. Just like my grandmother used to do, added a lot more when we tell her stuff. And that's one of my favorite stories. I have one that Anhild has told, but because of time, I don't know if I can tell it. It's already 10:27. I'd like to hear from you guys for a little bit before I tell the last one. Do you have stories? How did you learn how to read when you came here? Are you all born in Norfolk or come from different regions? I'm from Omaha, and Anhil's from Colorado, right? So he'll be telling next, and I don't want to take up his time. Make sure.
Scottsbluff and Kearney.
You're from Kearney?
Scottsbluff originally, so.
Where?
Scottsbluff?
Oh my God,
Very
Scottsbluff.
far west.
I know where that's at. My mom married a man, I was a second dad. My stepfather is from Scottsbluff, so I know the Perez family there. My grandparents were from there. I have uncles and aunts that were there. And then I have an uncle that moved from Denver back to Bridgeport, right outside of Scottsbluff. I know Scottsbluff very, very well. We'd go there. My dad got a job with his uncle raising beans there. So we lived in Scottsbluff for a while. Man, that was a long time ago. Dang. I love telling stories like that where you come from. Anybody else not from Norfolk?
Lincoln.
Lincoln, oh, I know Lincoln. I got my son's in-laws live there, so we go to Lincoln a lot. And I had an art show at the Great Plains Art Museum there, so I know Lincoln. We travel to Lincoln and do a lot of presentations there too. Kearney, I know Kearney.
Denison, Iowa.
Oh yeah, I know what Denison, Iowa is too. Oh my goodness. My Grand Island, yeah. Oh, my girlfriend lives in Wood River, right outside Grand Island. We've been friends for over 50 years. Was in her wedding, saw her kids grow, and I still call her almost once a week. It's really important when you make those calls, write those letters. I'm a letter writer. I love to see people's penmanship. My grandmother would write, oh my God, it'd take her a whole day to write a letter. Because she's from the old school, and really fancy. In fact, I kept some of her letters. Really fancy inscriptions like that. And I love the way she did cross these T's and these F's, the way she made these fancy F's. And she would make these curly Q's, and it took her forever to address it, to write the numbers and everything. Her penmanship was so beautiful. Now my husband writes like a doctor. I can't read a thing. And my letters were really funny because I took shorthand, so my letters were in shorthand, Spanish, and English. So I had to make sure that I had to proofread them because I had to change everything. I forgot a lot of my shorthand. I was a medical secretary for a while. Growing up with my grandmother, we did a lot of things. Then we moved to the farm, and my brother and I, of course, you know the story. You always did what your brother did, right? Or what your sister, you had to follow too. Well, I would follow him. We lived on a farm, so we had to walk about a mile to get to the local store there. It's a rural school. I went from kindergarten to 8th grade in one room. So I followed my brother. He says, let's take a shortcut. So I followed him over different pastures, over barbed fences. We fell in the water. By the time we got to school, my braids were all undone. I was full of mud. The teacher said, you can't go to school like this. So we had to go all the way back and change our clothes. This time we had to take a shortcut. But I listened to my brother. Of course, you know him. With the things we would get into. You have brothers and sisters? How many have brothers and sisters? You ever get in trouble that you didn't tell mom and dad? Of course. tell me yours. You still don't know. Nobody knows, huh?
Not a good storyteller.
You want to bet? Just tell it. You'll be surprised if you just tell that, some of those memories.
Did you go to a school in Nebraska that was a rural country
Yeah,
school?
it was right outside Papillion.
Okay, I did too, near Frampton. Our two children went to a country school near Crete, Nebraska.
Oh, I know where Crete's, Nebraska.
And then, of course, all the redistricting, those schools aren't there anymore.
What, from kindergarten to what? Eighth grade? Yeah, that was fun.
Might be 15 students and one teacher, one room.
God, we used to give her hell.
I went to a rural school in a church basement that was kindergarten through 8th, and then I also taught school. When I started, I began at the age of 19 in
Oh,
a
my
girls' one-room school.
I
At
knew
that
her.
time, you could with just 2 years.
Yeah, I know what you mean,
Yes.
I know what you mean.
Taught for 50 years.
Well, I was still speaking a lot of Spanish when I started kindergarten, but my life was saved because of 2 boys. In comes a boy with red hair and freckles. The second boy came in with blonde hair and brown freckles. And I thought, to transport Jeannie and Joni, my playmates. And believe it or not, I'm still friends with them and write to them, those 2 boys. And because I spoke little English, one of the things our teacher did was, she was going to teach us about the food pyramid. Do you remember the pyramid? Well, she went to the first 8th grade. And what did you have for breakfast? And then we went down, then she came to me. And what did you have for breakfast? I said, avena and manzana y leche. And she goes, what? She had this strange look on her face. And I repeated, avena, manzana y leche. And she goes, what? And I thought, I started crying, and I got up and took off and went back home. And I cried all the way. I thought, oh my gosh. And I went to the door. My mother said, what are you doing here? I said, oh, Mom, I'm really in trouble. I went to school to learn it, but I got a really stupid teacher. I'm really in trouble. And she laughed. She said, what had happened? And I told her, well, I told her I had for breakfast avena, manzana, y leche. And she said, oh, you're speaking a different language. Language, what is that? I didn't know what the word language meant until she explained. And so she opened up the cupboard and got out this round box. And this box has a white-haired man with a black hat and black. She goes, this is rolling oats, they call it, but it's also called oatmeal. So what you're saying, that's avena in your language. In my language, yeah. You speak Spanish. I do? Nobody ever told me that. I didn't know. And then she pulled out the refrigerator and pulled out the milk. This is leche. Oh, so I learned that. And then she said, and she took the apple. And she goes, this is manzana, apple. Oh, I remember those words. I remembered them really good all day, because the next morning I took that apple, ran to school. I saw the teacher working on her desk. I took that apple and I slammed it on her desk. This is an apple, and that's what I had for breakfast, and I had milk and I had oatmeal. And I thought, oh, I was so proud of myself. I said, oh my God, I'm more smarter than the teacher this day. It went to my head, because from there on I learned everything. I memorized. Every word I did not understand, I wrote down. I still do that, by the way. I still have a notebook. You'll see drawings on here, but if somebody says a word I don't understand, I put it in here. And if I see it on television, or if I hear about a writer or a book, I put it down here. And I have poems in here. My granddaughter draws in it too. This is her and her little sister and her dog. They slept with their dog. So I still do this. Do you still look up words? I hope you do. And that's where humanities really comes into play, because we discuss where we live, we discuss the world we live in, where we discuss the words. And believe it or not, our favorite parts where I get all my stories is at 398.2, folktales. I learned to speak English through poetry too. When I was in school, I found this little children's poetry book. And because I'm a visual artist, I like all this white space around it and the repetition of words. And that's why I pushed, when I became a librarian, all my mothers who came with their kids, I would push the poetry book. I said, your son can read the English, and you can see the Spanish, because it was really important to hear the Spanish and to look the Spanish. And that's what I love. There's different ways of writing. We can listen to it, we can hear it, we can feel it. Can you imagine a blind person reading Braille? How can they do that just by listening, just by feel? It's amazing. We had some Braille books at our library, and I would go through and look through, try to figure out a word. Ha, ha, ha. Not the same. I mean, they would read whole poems and stories and even questions that they had. And I thought it was amazing. If you have any more questions, I'm going to tell a small story again. Let's see, which one? I have to think which story. Just like Hill has to think about all the different stories, right? Oh my God, is he filled with bags and bags of stories. This guy is unbelievable. First time I saw him was at the College of St. Mary's. Oh my God, his movements. He has these wonderful dance movements, but he had these wonderful masks, and I hope he brings them back. He just mesmerized me. I mean, he put that mask on, and his whole body would change to a different character. He put on another mask on, and his body would change. And then he would walk, and I just could not believe what I was seeing. That was the same guy underneath that mask. That was unbelievable. I'm trying to think of a story without going into long names. Well, I'm going to tell this story on how I've added, you'll notice. Había una family. There was a lion who lived in the forest. And one of his jobs was to do, because he was the king, he'd go around to the animals and he'd go, "Hey, are you behaving?" And of course they would be scared. And he'd look up at the bird, "Hey, you behaving?" Well, of course you're going to say yes. Who wants to say no to those sharp teeth and those claws? Well, one of his things he did not like to do is to go out when it was really hot, because it was so hot in his big old claws he would sweat. And if they're sweaty, if you're on dirt, you know, you ended up with a little bit of mud. But he loved to come home to his favorite spot, because it was by this big old tree, big old oak trees, and would give him all this shade. But the best thing is that his cave was by a mountain, and on top of that mountain was the snow. And then that snow, the wind would come around and pick up that cool air, go around the mountain, go around the tree, go around the trunk, and he would lay underneath and he'd go like this. And that cool wind would cool his paw, and he'd go, "Oh." You know how good that feels? I want you to do that. I want you to cross your arms, and I just want you to go, "Ah." You feel how good that feels, that just that energy all coming, really relaxes you. So if you ever feel tired, just remember that line. Oh, that feels so good. I still do it to this day. My son does it once in a while too. He gets bored with me. No, I'm just kidding. So he would do, well, one of these days he went out on his searches again to make sure everybody was behaving, and he came across a creature I'd never seen before. She was this tall. She had these beautiful furs, cinnamon brown furs, and these beautiful brown eyes. It was Senorita Oso. It was Miss Bear. She was beautiful. Oh, Miss Bear, I've never seen you around. She says, "Oh," and they started talking. She told him where she had been and all the different fruits she had been. He was so interested. His heart went, "Boop, boop." And he says, "You gonna be here tomorrow?" He says, "I'll be back." He wanted to hear her talk more stories. You know how it is when you first fall in love, You gotta listen to every single word, right? And you wanna hear it. And that's what he did. He fell in love. And then he told all the animals, you know what, I'm gonna marry that woman. What? That was the silliest thing they ever heard of. A lion marrying a bear, because they knew the secret. The lion was stubborn. You better believe it when he's got a claw, you're gonna say yes. And they knew about Miss Bear having long claws, and they better be obedient. She was stubborn too. But this is what they knew. When you get two stubborn people together, there's going to be a fight. And they, oh, all right, there's going to be a nice fight. We can hardly wait. So the day of the wedding, they all get ready. Their friends came over this way, and their friends come over this way, and they just waited. Oh, the wedding took place, and they said, oh, you just wait, there's going to be a good fight. And they're whispering to each other, I don't know when it's going to happen. Well, it didn't happen after they were married, and they had a big feast. And they're eating, everybody's eating, but they're watching that lion, and they're watching that bear, and they're listening. Oh man, there still was no fight. No, maybe tonight they had their fiesta, and they got all the burning logs, and they made a big fire, and they're dancing. But they're watching that lion, and they're watching that bear. Still no fight. Oh man, they're so disappointed as a parent. The friends tell, now if you hear about a big fire, you come and get us. Yeah, if you hear about a big fire, you come and get us. Well, they went home and they all slept. They had forgotten all about the fight. But it was now time the next day for the lion to go out and make his rounds again. Are you behaving? Even told the fish, are you behaving? Yeah. Everybody said yes, so it was time. He wanted to get home right away because Miss Bear was going to come home with his lunch, which was going to be all kinds of different wild berries, and she had a basket of them. And sure enough, he goes back home, went under the tree, waited for that cool air, and he started falling asleep. And he fell asleep, and here comes Miss Bear with her basket. And now, I'm going to use you for an example. Now, if you're a lion, you make up the line like that. Oh, mi amor. She was to be him. You don't say, hey, wake up. No. She took the biggest, juiciest strawberry, this big, and she's going to wake him up. So very tenderly she goes, she's ready to touch him, and only from this far, that's when it happened. At the same time she went down, the breeze had come down under his feet and went under her nose, and what's that smell? What's that smell? And all her screaming and loud, and it woke up the lion. Ka. Oh, pushy lion, you have some stinky feet, oochie. And the lion goes, yo, I don't have no stinky feet. And she goes, yes you do. And he goes, no I don't. Yes you do. And they started arguing, and it started getting loud, and all the family of friends and everybody started hearing, oh, the day of the big fight is here. So they all come in, but you better not be seen. So all the animals either hid behind bushes or logs, and some of the birds went up and hid behind the big leaves, and they held on tightly. But they started laughing so hard. You know what happens when you laugh? You kind of lose control a little bit, and you just started giggling. Well, pretty soon the bear saw animals rolling out of the bushes. Some of the trees had dropping birds, and she got mad. She goes, hey, you, get in line. And then you better obey what she said. So the animals made a line. She goes, and the first one up, she goes, go smell the lion's feet. Yo, me? He says, yes. The first one up is this little cat. I don't know what animal comes first. I forgot. Anyhow, the cat comes on and he goes, oh, lion, your feet smell like roses. And the bear goes, what? And she goes, whack. And that little cat went way over there. Next one is a little dog. You know dogs got good sniffers, right? So he goes up, oh, Leon, two patas, they stink, they Gucci patas. He goes, what? And he goes, whack. And that dog flew over there. And all you heard for the next period was whack this way and a whack that way. And everybody says, oh, the last one is mine, the little fox. You know little foxes are very smart, don't you? You know the stories about fox. They're clever and they're cunning. You know why? Because she was watching what was going on. She was listening what was going on, but most of all, she was using her head. So she goes up to the lion, and they're all waiting. And there was, oh, I wonder which way she's going to get whopped. And they all back up. And I didn't want this was going to be a good one, because she was the last one. And the lion just looks, he's ready to whack her, and the bear's ready to whack her. And she goes up one more time. Oh, excuse me, Leon. Excuse me, senorita. There. She goes, you see, I've had a cold, and I can't breathe very good. I can't smell a thing. And that's the end of our story. So you know what to say now. Somebody has to, you don't say who's got you just say, oh, I got a cold. I can't smell anything. And I got that story from on here.
I made it up.
Well, so did I.
You told a better version of it, I like your version.
Well, we are about out of time.
Anybody have any questions about my stories or anything? I borrow them. I get them from books. I hear them from other tellers. I heard you tell that story. It cracked me up so bad. Because it made me what I heard from my grandmother. Uchi patas. I got a lot of more grandmother stories and grandfather stories. Oh, I do not wear pants. I always wear a dress because of my grandfather. My grandfather loved my legs when I was little. He gave me his cane to play with, and his favorite thing was to take me for a walk. Where he ended up was at the beer joint or the bar. That's when they allowed kids in there, so I'd follow him. The trouble is, he gave me a nickname, and I was so afraid of that nickname. He called me Chocolate Legs. Pierden de chocolate. Well, do you know what happens to chocolate on a hot day when you're outside? It melts. Well, you don't tell that to a 3-year-old, because I thought my legs were going to melt. So I'd go out and I'd check the weather. Grandfather, I can't go with you, it's too hot. Or if it was kind of breezy and it was a nice breeze, I'd go with him, but I would run from shade to shade, or I'd follow his shadow until we got to the beer joint where it was nice and cool. I loved it because all his friends didn't speak Spanish, but they knew what they were talking about. I ended with all this candy and bags of chips and everything, so I had a load to take home. So when I got home, I was so proud. He said, take a dance, my chocolate leg. So I thought I could really dance with that cane. I smack a couple of walls with it, but I turn around and I'd be kicking my legs. So ever since that, I wear dresses because of him. So I don't know if you can do them. They're kind of pale now, my chocolate legs. They haven't melted, but they're not in the great shape anymore. But any questions? I enjoy you so much. Thank you. I hope you remember this grandfather and grandmother story. You need to tell them. And you need to tell your relatives, our friends, what was your favorite toy when you were little? Somewhere, at that time, you just didn't go out and buy toys, right? You made them.
We climbed trees.
You what?
We climbed trees.
Oh my
The
God.
front yard was a row of cedar trees.
I used to make tents out of my mother's sheets
Yeah.
over the place. She never could understand why there was holes on each end. That's what we'd get a little piece of stinging. Yeah, we never told her that either. I think she figured it out. But I'd like to hear what kind of toys you had, or you made, or somebody gave you that you hold dear. I mean, how many people know what's your favorite color, what's your favorite story, what's your favorite book, what's your favorite poem, what's your favorite author, what's your favorite storyteller?
Well, I think after this morning, our favorite storyteller is probably Linda. And, this has been a real treat. Thank you for sharing your stories with us this morning. We have another session coming up. Let's give her a round of applause.